this episode is a tiny bit longer than I kind of wanted it to be, since, you know, I had a little time lapse of me doing the things that I had kind of planned, but then I also started working on the station for the log flume, and that just added 5 minutes, whoops, to the video, so it's actually a tiny bit long now. I tried to go for somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, but it's slightly over 15 minutes. Not really a huge deal, but anyway, in this episode, I was going to work on the log flume, like I said, and a tiny bit of the station, and also a tiny bit of pathworks over here, and removing this building. Which, by the way, I've got some people say that, you know, it looks more Arabian in a way than it looks Spanish, which I think is the interesting thing about the Spanish architecture, is that it's got many influences of the Arabian culture in there. It's kind of like a mishmash between the Mediterranean, well, it's probably mostly the Mediterranean classical-ish architecture, but there's a tiny bit of Arabian in there, since, like, I don't know exactly when. I don't want to turn this into a history lesson, but at some point in time during like the 1400s something, the Muslims still occupied, the Muslims, I'm sorry, the what were they called even? It was some Muslim people occupied Spain, and that just kind of happened, and that's how you got those influences in there. Don't really know for sure, actually, right now that I'm doing all this stuff, whether I can actually get the Italian or even the Greek theme in the park somewhere, since it'll be really hard to actually cram that in there and make it look good, since on the other side of the river I already want and kind of need to start doing the Northern European thing, because otherwise there is no room left to do anything else anymore. But hopefully there is actually some space where I can add some Italian things and things like that. I don't know, it also kind of depends on whether I feel like doing that or not. In any case, these buildings are actually mostly based on somewhat famous buildings in Spain, which is actually also something that Blackout taught me to do, probably, is to just look at some famous buildings and just kind of take your inspiration from that to make it look like a certain country, which is most likely going to be the most important thing for the Spanish theme, because it isn't like a Asian theme, for example. It is really easy to distinguish a Japanese theme from like an Indian theme or something like that, since they're completely different architectural styles, but try to distinguish a Spanish theme from an Italian theme to somebody who isn't really too, you know, into that type of architecture, doesn't really know too much about either type of architecture, is kind of hard, so you kind of need to go into the signature buildings and styles. So that's why the building on the corner over there is kind of loosely based on the Metropolis building in Madrid. This little building was based on a picture I found of something I don't even know the name of, and the station is going to be inspired by the City Hall of Madrid, so that's kind of how that happened. Also, there is the cypress spam, of course, which kind of helps as well, having that, you know, having that foliage in there to help as well. Which, by the way, something that many people are actually worried about is having the exact right foliage, climate-ish thing going on in their parks. Which is, I mean, I know I just released that foliage tutorial, but you don't really have to worry about what type of climate a tree is supposed to be in, as long as you don't place too many of them. If you place them, for example, on a path. Like, you can place palm trees in any Northern European country safely, but make sure that it's like close to the paths and stuff, and that it's in a planter, that it can be moved to a shelter in the winter, and that it can be maintained correctly. And if you kind of do that, then you can pretty much use any type of foliage that you really want to. By the way, I was so confused when this terraforming thing happened, because as you can see, I tried to place some different textures in there, and like every single damn fucking square was like uneven, and there were edges, and it was kind of confusing, especially since I don't see any edges, and I've no idea where that actually comes from. It's just kind of an annoying little thing. Also, yeah, there is some stupid experimentation right there. I'm very sorry about that. This was in the middle of a stream, and sometimes in a stream you just feel like doing some funny stuff. Now, my blur song just ended and it doesn't automatically go to the next one. What are we doing? You can't do that. I had to click it manually. There we go, back. And, oh yeah, right. This planter, by the way, is, I don't know what, but somebody said in the stream that this thing looked like a banana. And, no idea why, like, it doesn't even look like one, but then when I look at it closer, it still doesn't look like anything. No idea, it's just a tiny planter that I wanted to have there, since there was no other way of actually getting rid of those little gaps in the ground Unless I wanted to make the paths wider, but that is definitely something that I didn't want to do. And there weren't any other curves really, so this is about the only solution I could come up with. Though I think it looks alright. But in terms of pathworks and all that, those details, I'm still very, very unsure what I'm going to do with this area. And I might actually not plan it and just wing it, seriously. Since I don't know how much I'm looking forward to actually planning this stuff here, and I feel like as long as I keep this like a normal path area and add some other paths on the other side, leave some room for the queue and the exit, then it should be fine. And the this side, with having that weird stone and grass in the middle and weird shapes, is going to be kind of like having planters over there and also tables and chairs for a restaurant. So that should all be alright. By the way, I need to thank Vicky once again because she literally saved my life. I never really knew that. Okay, here's an issue. I need to address that first. The issue is that I've always wondered and complained about this jello water. Since, you know, I have some pretty high graphic settings on Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, you don't get jello water. The water is reflective, it is deep blue, it is beautiful, and it's actually really good, and it's better than what we've seen in, like, some of the games, like the screens from RCT World and shit, which is pretty cool for a 2004 game. But still, you know, I placed some water elsewhere, it would turn into jello water for some reason. Never really knew why, but turns out that if you have like waters at different heights within the park, you can only have the reflective, beautiful water at one height. So if you place that like somewhere and then place water elsewhere, but at a different elevation, then it turns into jello water. So yeah, I basically learned that I have to keep all my water at the same heights. It's not really too big of an issue, but it kind of restricts you in what you really want to do. And also, I was planning on having some water higher up on the hills on this log flume, but that is not going to happen in the end, since it is really hard to even make that, and I'm not too big of a fan of the jello water. Also, buckle up for how many minutes? 3 or 4 more minutes of log flume building, since this was actually taking quite a while. I wanted to have one mountain in the middle where both lift hills would go up on, and where both drops would be, and I wanted to have some room left for scenery and things like that, and it wasn't really quite as easy as I hoped it was. I kind of want to go for a choppas-ish thing, which I know I said before, but I want to have that big diagonal drop in the middle right there where I can add buildings and rocks around it. At least that's kind of how I have it planned right now. And then I kind of wanted to tuck the lift hills on the edge of the mountain so you don't really see them too much. But it was really hard to actually connect those things. So yeah, this is where the pain starts. And oh my god, I think I took 2 more minutes to kind of finish that, since, you know, sometimes you're building a layout and it just doesn't work. And then as soon as you give up on that, just remove half the layout and decide to do it in a completely different way, that turns out to work even less well. And I hate it when that happens. Seriously. So yeah, it actually took quite a bit of work to get this log flume to actually work, but I think it's alright right now. It doesn't really take too much space, and you know, I do have some nice little thing up there where I can add scenery around it, and where the highest drop is actually also going to be the highest point of the mountain. So I feel pretty safe about that, honestly. The only thing that, you know, is obviously a tiny bit strange about this thing is that, you know, it doesn't even have log flume areas on top of that mountain. It's almost like a aqua coaster, but I think that should be alright. Hell, maybe if I'm not lazy, but that is probably not going to happen. I could make some scenery for that, but that's just, I don't even know how to do that exactly. I don't even wish to start making scenery for track pieces. Plus, I'm too lazy for that, like I said. Just don't do that. So yeah, this is something that I tried at first, and I figured, you know, I could have a small little river over there at the end of both lift hills, but although that would be cool, it just takes so much more space and it's really not efficient, and then the train would have to go around that, and that would be kind of painful. So I had to change that in the end, but we're almost there, I think. Yeah, this is almost at the point where I decided to, nah, fuck it, I'm just going to move that thing. I finally decided to get a brain and just make a simple curve, and then it should work in the end. I think that's just kind of how that worked out. Yeah, there we go, simple curve, and it matches up and it's all perfect. And at that point I figured, alright, that's going to be this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. But that didn't exactly happen, as it fades out and just keeps going. Oh my god, that is not good. Like, it fades out because I figured that was going to be the episode, but then I made a tiny time lapse this morning because I still had some time, and yeah, that's how we got over here. And it's time to build this palace, which, looking back at it, I mean, you haven't really seen anything of it, but I feel like it's going to turn into a nice little station, but I say little, but it's damn humongous. Thing is that I'm kind of worried about its size, though. I'm kind of worried about its size, kind of making the mountain seem a tiny bit smaller, but for now I just want to keep it and see how I can work around it, because I am somewhat happy about how it turned out in the end, especially for something that I haven't really tried out before. But I think I'll just let the video speak for how it's going to be. I'm not going to really say anything about it. I realize that I always say that, you know, I don't like my own stuff. Like, I get that. It is pretty annoying when I build things and I'm like, I don't like that. Which is like me in half of my episodes. But yeah, sometimes I just feel not so sure about what I want to build, and whenever I'm like that, I'm also kind of unsure about what comes out of it. And yeah, I just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of want to express that as well, since this isn't all about the videos that I make for the Let's Play, but it's really also about the park. And the park is the main objective, actually, and I want to keep it that way for this series. And something that I haven't really complained about too openly, and I'm gonna fucking do this, is Rose Gardens. The fact that that is one of my least favorite things I've ever made. At some point in the middle of Rose Gardens, like, I think the beginning is good and the ending is good, but at some point in the middle, I felt like I had to work on it for the Let's Play, and it kind of is visible in the park itself. It really turns generic halfway through, I think, and kind of uninspired, and that is something that I want to avoid. And I know I'm complaining about something that I made again, and I don't really wish to do that too much, but I think it was a learning experience for me that I really want to focus on what I am building rather than the Let's Play. And I even think that in the end that's going to make the Let's Play a lot better, since I just feel like you need to play the game when you want to have fun with it, and creativity is something that you can't force. So even though I might get some pretty inconsistent uploads with this park, I'm very sorry, yeah, in advance if that turns out to happen, but that's kind of the reason. I just want to work on this when I have inspiration for it, when I feel like I have some good ideas and some good plans for it. And other than that, I want to not do anything with it. Like, if I don't feel like working on this, I'm not going to do that, and hopefully you can understand that that is the reason. But don't worry, in the meantime, I can definitely fill up my time with other stuff and tutorials and things. Speaking of which, I need to make loads more of those. I haven't really done that too much lately, and I was kind of planning on doing a lot of those. But yeah, that's pretty much life. I haven't really talked about this building yet. Yeah, most people are probably not too familiar with the City Hall in Madrid, but it's a really large building with a lot of vertical accents. Like, seriously, that has towers and pillars all over the place. It's got a huge hexagon-shaped tower in the middle, and two smaller hexagon-shaped towers on the sides. And I was going to kind of do it like that, which was evidently why I placed that tower in there in the first place, but just kind of wanted to remove that since it turned out way too large for a station, and also for what I will have around this area. And like I said, as you can see right now, it is turning into quite a large block in the middle of this area, which I'm on the fence about its size, since it is so large and it really wants to have all the attention. So not really sure if that's going to work out too well, but I want to kind of wait it out until I get the buildings around it and the foliage around it, because it's really not that large of a building. Its footprint is like about, what is it? I think it's like, yeah, it's 5 by 4 basically, so it's not even that large. So hopefully it is going to work out. I wouldn't want to remove this building. That would be a pain, and also a shame. So hopefully I can work it out somehow. But yeah, this is how the building is going to be. Like that arch in the middle is going to be filled up with something. I just don't know exactly what's right now, but it's not going to be completely open like that. There can't be anything over there. But yeah, that's this building. The facade is basically finished at this point. Just need to finish the backside, and that's going to happen next episode. So see you then.